How our MC punched a dual-colored eye wolf, defeated a crazy cultist, a crazy lesbian cultist, and became the martial god. But let's start from the beginning. Shuichi had always heard the saying that one's life flashes before their eyes in their final moments, but he never imagined it would happen to him. As his father lay dying, the man asked Shuichi to take care of his mother and sister. The memory shifted to his mother handing him a snack, telling him about her new job, and reminding him to focus on his studies. Then he remembered his little sister, Isusa, holding a lollipop and promising to always listen to their mother. The scene shifted again, this time to school, where a bully crushed Shuichi's snack beneath his shoe. The bully demanded to know why he had dared to come to school while his friends held a girl in place. After screaming at Shuichi for being too weak to play the hero, the girl he attempted to protect told him he shouldn't have hurt the bullies and should simply look out for himself. In the moment he glanced back at her, a truck barreled toward him, horn blaring. Shuichi froze, unable to react, watching the vehicle draw closer. His umbrella flew from his grip as he wondered if this was truly how he would die. Lying on the ground in a growing pool of red, he realized his end had come. His thoughts drifted to his mother and Isusa just as a strange light enveloped him. Regret overwhelmed him for failing to protect them, and he wished he could do so in another life. A blue light linked him to a couple passing nearby, and tears welled in his eyes as he thought about how powerless he had always been. Before fading completely, he swore that in another life he would protect those he loved with his own two hands. His consciousness drifted into another world, transporting him to the magical continent of Arcanis. A crowd had gathered for a ceremony as a man announced the beginning of the annual divine blessing. Children under 6 were instructed to offer their most precious possessions, and in return, a divine messenger would determine their hidden magical element and grant them an opportunity. A small boy asked his mother if he could offer his candy, but she reminded him the offering needed to be something valuable. A box nearby displayed 2 radiant, expensive blue jewels as an example. A noblewoman named Lady Blank boasted that the more valuable the offering, the greater the chance of receiving a powerful blessing. 2 men discussed the Ryan family, who had spent their entire fortune preparing for this moment. A noble family then approached the altar with confident steps, the Ryan family. Onlookers whispered how tragic it would be if they were not blessed after everything they had sacrificed. Hall Ryan, the head of the family, thought to himself that he had placed an enormous wager on the future of his bloodline. He believed his children, Leica and Louis Ryan, were extraordinarily gifted and destined to receive high-level blessings. The priest called for the next child, little Julia Ryan. She walked timidly toward the altar and offered a small golden crown, her most precious possession. Instantly, a massive blue magic circle ignited beneath her, glowing with intense brilliance. Bursts of energy erupted from it, astonishing everyone. Someone in the crowd wondered aloud if this was the legendary blessing of Kahai, the god of thunder. The result was a level 7 blessing, something that had not been seen in 12 years. Her family rejoiced, believing this was proof the gods had chosen them. As the light faded, Julia stood bewildered, unsure of what had occurred. People whispered that her offering had been the crown of thunder, yet it wasn't valuable enough to cost a fortune. A man pointed out that one child remained, the one with the truly legendary treasure. Hall Ryan turned to his son Lucas, telling him it was his turn. Lucas nodded with confidence. A servant presented a box, asking him to accept the offering within. When Lucas opened it, everyone recoiled at the demonic energy emanating from the sword inside. Holding the blade caused the spirit of Volcano, progenitor of magic and god of fire, to manifest behind him. His little sister encouraged him to give his all and secure a powerful blessing. The priest watched Lucas approach the altar, impressed by the bravery required to offer something so valuable. He understood Hall Ryan had staked everything on this moment. When Lucas placed the sword on the altar, a fiery magic circle erupted with overwhelming force. Outside, the sky shifted to a deep, menacing red. Hall Ryan stared in disbelief, wondering if this was truly the legendary level 9 blessing. Inside the hall, torches flared violently. A colossal wave of fire burst from the altar, sending the crowd into a panic. Lucas looked drowsy, almost unaware of the chaos. The cursed sword floated into the air as Lucas watched it, mesmerized. He noticed a small flame dancing on his hand, confused by its presence, before it suddenly engulfed his entire arm. Panic overtook him as the fire consumed his whole body. His screams echoed while the cursed sword floated above him. Strange fire orbs formed within the flames and dripped onto the floor. Outside, the sky abruptly returned to normal as if nothing unusual had occurred. Hall Ryan asked if the blessing had ended and wondered where the divine spirit had gone. Julia pointed toward the altar, urging everyone to look. A body plummeted from above, shrouded in blue flames and gray smoke. Her lollipop fell to the ground and shattered. Lucas lay on the floor, confused and frightened, with no idea what had just happened. Seeing him in such a state, Julia burst into tears. The family rushed to him, shouting his name in panic. His parents knelt beside him, begging him to wake up and trying to understand how this disaster had occurred. The priest declared that the god of fire had rejected the boy entirely. Lucas Ryan, he said, had been abandoned by Volcano and granted no blessing. In that moment, Shuichi's soul from another world descended into the boy's body. In the realm of the fire god, Volcano raged over what had occurred. He seethed at the audacity of the Ryan family for offering the very power that had once nearly ended him. The blade still carried the scar from the moment it struck him, a wound he would never forgive. A small fire spirit appeared, puffing smoke in a mocking gesture. Other spirits praised Volcano for his mercy, pointing out that he had only burned the child's soul instead of obliterating it entirely. One of the spirits noticed the foreign soul hovering nearby and asked if it should be incinerated as well. Volcano dismissed the idea, stating he would not waste time on an insect from an outer world. He turned his attention toward the offering, intending to examine it further. Shuichi's soul remained suspended inside a blue sphere as Volcano observed from afar. Within that sphere, the soul gazed toward an intensely bright light shining before him. The scene shifted to the heavenly spring realm of a martial god. A powerful figure hovered in the air, his eyes glowing with golden energy that radiated immense strength. His expression was grim, as though he were bracing for a monumental conflict. Golden power surged from his feet as he stepped forward, each stride breaking an invisible barrier before him. Dimensional walls shattered like glass under the force of his advance. The martial god continued to walk, tearing through one barrier after another, carving a path into unknown space. Eventually, he broke through the final boundary and emerged in a realm filled with stars. There, he confronted a massive, multi-eyed creature that ruled over that strange world. Crossing his arms, the martial god questioned whether the creature truly intended to stand in his way. The monster fixed all its red eyes on him and opened a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. It launched a shadowy blast of dark energy, but the martial god didn't flinch. The creature lunged, attempting to swallow him whole, but he held its jaws open with ease. Golden light erupted from his body as he prepared a counterattack. With all his power channeled into a single blow, he punched the monster, unleashing a brilliant explosion that obliterated it completely. Only after the creature vanished did the martial god allow himself a satisfied smile. At that moment, a gigantic wormhole opened, glowing with blue light. He examined it calmly, smirking at the immense energy it radiated. To him, it was nothing special. Then a small golden light streaked toward him. A muscular fairy, his attendant spirit, flew into his palm, crying out in distress. He asked why she was interrupting him, but then sensed something unusual. His old partner, Rect D, had just been destroyed. He wondered what could possibly be happening on the continent of Arcanus. 1,000 years ago, martial arts had been superior to magic, yet now Volcano received worship. The fairy retorted that if he hadn't been so obsessed with martial arts, that pitiful god would never have risen to power. The martial god replied that spreading martial arts was a heavy burden, yet he must continue regardless. A small flame flickered, and he admitted he had no interest in developing it further, yet he still bore a responsibility. He needed to pass on his knowledge so martial arts would not die out. He walked toward an intensely bright white light. His consciousness compressed into a small point of golden energy and drifted through the void of space. Shuichi, unconscious within Lucas's body, heard a voice and wondered if he had somehow survived. He opened his eyes to find himself in an entirely new situation, confused and unable to piece together the events around him. In his mind, he saw numerous muscular faces of the martial gods surrounding him. Completely bewildered, he struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. The entity introduced himself as Mars, the martial god, and declared he would grant Shuichi a divine blessing. Suddenly, Lucas awoke in a bed, questioning whether the entire episode had been nothing more than a bizarre dream. but the muscular fairies appeared around him, chanting the martial god's name with excitement. He stared at them in shock as the martial god announced he would bestow upon him the blessing of the martial arts god. A beam of golden light shot through him, leaving him paralyzed as he received the level 9 martial god's blessing. The constraints limiting his martial arts training vanished entirely. When he finally sat up, he wondered what any of it meant, what a martial god level 9 even referred to. He remembered how absurdly muscular all the spirits had been, still baffled by everything. He thought about the truck accident and tried to understand how he could still be alive. Gradually, he pieced together the truth. Memories belonging to the original Lucas Ryan flooded his mind in a torrent. Shuichi laughed nervously, wondering if the gods were playing some kind of elaborate joke, yet the reality was clear. He had been reborn in a world of magic as a boy rejected by the gods. He thought of his mother and sister back in his previous life and realized they would be left with only insurance money. Looking at his hands, he still couldn't grasp the meaning of the martial god's blessing or martial arts in this world. At that moment, a pink and white lollipop rolled quietly into the room. He turned toward the doorway, uncertain who had left it. A little blonde girl stood there, eyes full of tears and face trembling with sadness. She burst into sobs and ran toward him, throwing herself into his arms. He embraced her gently as she cried, relieved that he was awake. She explained she had overheard people saying he would never wake up, and it had terrified her. Lucas reassured her with a warm smile, thinking to himself that this must be his new sister, Julia. But her face reminded him of Isusa, and he imagined the grief she must have felt in his previous world. Because of that, he silently vowed to protect the precious people in this new life. The sunlight outside fell softly upon a pot of yellow flowers, carrying a sense of hope. The scene shifted to a grand altar dominated by the statue of an angel. The figure appeared serene, but a strange aura began to seep out. Dark liquid trickled from the statue's eyes like tears of blood, and soon the entire figure was covered in it. A malevolent woman materialized before the corrupted statue. She declared that the presence of a detestable man had finally vanished from the world. She wondered aloud whether he had died or simply abandoned this realm. A snake emblem rested on her chest as she lamented the small amount of power she had left. Her dark hair drifted around her as she slowly recovered from her wounds. With a twisted smile, she proclaimed that without him standing in her way, the world would soon be hers. 9 years passed, bringing the story to the present day at the grand mansion of the noble Ryan family. Outside, a young man wiped sweat from his face with a white handkerchief while whistling. This was Lucas Ryan, Shuichi's reincarnated self, now older and stronger. He noted that the weather had finally cleared and assumed Julia must have finished her magic practice. Deciding to go find her, he suddenly felt the air shift. A thorny vine shot toward him from the side. He sensed the danger immediately and braced himself as the vine coiled around him, tightening until he hung immobilized in the middle of the garden. Annoyed, he recognized this childish trick instantly. As expected, his half-brother Jeremy emerged holding a staff, revealing himself as the attacker. With smug sarcasm, Jeremy greeted him while a nearby maid giggled at Lucas's predicament. Jeremy smugly reminded him that the backyard was reserved for the mages of the Ryan family. The thorny vines tightened further, causing Lucas sharp pain. With a cruel smirk, Jeremy threatened to break a few ribs to teach him a lesson. But to his surprise, Lucas simply let out a bored yawn. The reaction confused him completely. Lucas calmly pointed out that Julia would return soon from her practice, and if Jeremy didn't release him, she would probably fry him with lightning. Jeremy flushed with anger, calling him a coward who hid behind his sister and insisting he wasn't afraid of lightning. But in that same instant, a bolt of purple lightning shot down from the sky, striking Jeremy full force. His entire body turned pitch black as smoke lifted from him. The maid shrieked in fear for her master. Lucas turned to see Julia approaching, her magic staff in hand. The pink staff, decorated with cat ears, still crackled with purple sparks, showing its immense magical power. Now older, Julia warned Jeremy that if he bullied her brother again, she wouldn't hold back next time. Her angry expression made clear she was not joking. She then told Lucas she would remove the vines, and with her magic, the thorny restraints crumbled into dust. Lucas gently patted her head, earning an adorable smile. He then faced Jeremy, asking if he had finally learned not to mess with him. Jeremy's face burned with rage, but he muttered incoherently and fled with the maid, both terrified of Julia's lightning. Lucas remarked that she had gone easy on Jeremy with that last shock. Julia sighed, asking why he hadn't fought back and reminding him that his strength was supposed to stay a secret. Lucas smiled teasingly, joking that she was always there to protect him anyway. 9 years had passed since Shuichi reincarnated into Lucas Ryan's body. He remembered the day he awoke. His father came to visit leaning on a wooden cane. Lucas had fully expected to be disowned for failing their expectations. Instead, his father hugged him tightly, relieved that he had woken up safely. He Ryan, leader of a renowned knight order within the kingdom, was rarely home due to his duties, but he always remained a caring father. When he learned Lucas had been training in martial arts, he sent him a letter containing information about old martial arts tomes stored in the family archives. Encouraged by this, Lucas sought them out, exploring the archives by candlelight to find the books Hall mentioned. Thanks to that letter, Lucas laid the foundation for his bold and ambitious future. 2 maids complained about how he disappeared every day, running off to who knows where. One assured the other not to worry, he would be expelled from the family soon anyway for lacking magic. Before they could continue gossiping, the ground trembled beneath their feet. They wondered if someone was practicing earth magic, completely unaware of the true source. Lucas was deep underground, training by punching a solid stone wall with incredible force. He stood inside a hidden cave he had excavated himself. He revealed that the hideout was located directly beneath his room and built entirely by hand. Spending 6 months digging it, he divided the underground chamber into 4 sections. A study area, a storage space, a training ground, and a simple bathroom with a cheap tub. Ever since completing the training area, he had practiced here in secret every day, pushing himself to grow stronger. After an exhausting training session, Lucas prepared for his medicinal bath. The purple water rippled with spiritual energy as wispy shapes rose from the surface, showing its potency. He relaxed into the tub, noting that the medicinal bath was the most effective method for strengthening martial arts practitioners. 3 years had passed since he began using the chaotic tempering technique. Because of it, his body had become so durable that magical attacks below level 5 couldn't even harm him. His defense was finally solidifying, and it was time to focus on offense. Lucas retrieved his katana to test his improving skills on a training dummy. With steady breath and firm grip, he concentrated and delivered a quick, precise strike. In an instant, he lunged forward, slashing the dummy with incredible speed. Determination and power reflected in his eyes. Beyond swordsmanship, Lucas had also mastered other weapons, including the spear. He charged at the dummy again, thrusting the spear with tremendous force. The target was then torn apart by a flurry of fast, skillful blows until it collapsed into pieces. Reaching level 4 in the technique, Lucas decided to spend time training his fists as well. Though his abilities had improved significantly, he felt something amiss. Martial artists eventually hit a plateau, and surpassing it required enlightenment, a concept so elusive that most practitioners gave up before reaching it. Standing before a massive stone pillar, Lucas declared that his path would be different. Taking a deep breath, he focused all his energy and punched with full force. The pillar exploded into thousands of pieces, dust filling the cave. Amidst the debris, Lucas observed his work with confidence. His fist technique had reached level 5. He realized then that his levels only increased upward, never stopping, thanks to the limitless divine blessing he had received. There was no upper cap for his growth. A clock on the cave wall chimed midnight, reminding him that his father Hall was returning home tonight and the family was scheduled for dinner. Night had already fallen by the time Lucas emerged from his training chamber and returned to the mansion. He dressed and walked through the corridor toward the dining hall. Upon entering, he found his family gathered around the table for the special dinner. Hall noted that it had been half a year since they last saw each other and invited his son to sit. Lucas smiled and took his place at the table. Hall announced that Allen Academy was opening a martial arts department and had already enrolled Lucas. He encouraged him, acknowledging the challenge ahead but expressing complete faith that Lucas could pass the exam. Lucas thanked him while Julia ate calmly beside him. Lucas reflected that he needed to grow stronger to protect what mattered, but without drawing too much attention. Looking at his hand, he considered how to balance his power without causing trouble. Lucas sat at the table, contemplating how to manage his strength without alarming anyone, when his sister suddenly raised her hand, declaring that she wanted to attend Allen Magic Academy with him. Their father immediately objected, insisting she was too young. but Julia countered without hesitation, explaining that the elite class imposed no age restriction. She then presented the official letter she had already received, an offer from the academy itself. Intrigued, Hall took the letter from her hands to verify its authenticity. His eyes widened in approval as he read, and he praised Julia proudly, remarking that her reputation as a prodigy had already reached the renowned Allen Academy. Julia positively glowed with excitement, while Jeremy watched everything from the side, simmering with jealousy. The blonde boy wondered aloud why Lucas, of all people, was receiving such special treatment, and how it would affect his own position in the family. Just as his resentment reached its peak, a hand in a purple glove rested gently on his shoulder, attempting to calm him. Startled, Jeremy turned to see a serene woman standing behind him, Jessica Ryan, his mother. With quiet confidence, she advised him not to concern himself with Lucas. A faint, malicious smile curled on her lips as she added that there was no guarantee Lucas would even pass the exam. The subtle venom in her tone revealed that she was already plotting something behind the scenes. A week passed. On the day of their departure, the family gathered at the gate to see Lucas and Julia off. Their mother fussed lovingly over them, urging them to take care of themselves and promising to visit with their favorite pudding. She handed each of them a gold coin as a good luck charm. The coin, she explained, belonged to the ancient Buon dynasty, which had unified the world 10,000 years ago. Their father added that the coin bore the image of the first emperor, Mars, on one side and his weapon on the other. Lucas immediately recognized Mars's face, the very same muscular spirit who had bestowed his blessing. His parents urged him to keep the coin close at all times. Lucas felt deeply moved. He had been fortunate enough to have a loving family in his past life and an equally wonderful one now. With heartfelt goodbyes and warm smiles, the siblings climbed into their carriage and set off for the academy. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the coachman Foron announced that they would make camp for the night. Under the full moon's light, the group settled safely in a clearing. If they left early the next morning, Foron explained, they would reach the city of Daku, home to the academy. Julia immediately perked up. She asked if Daku had anything interesting to offer, and Foron eagerly explained that the city was famous for its annual magical dodgeball tournament in the spring. He added that it was also a paradise for food lovers, boasting countless delicious local dishes. Julia's mouth watered at the description, and Lucas teased her when a tiny droplet of drool appeared at the corner of her lips. But then Lucas suddenly tensed, sensing something wrong. His expression hardened, alert and wary. His heightened senses detected 12 horses and 13 individuals racing toward them at high speed. He asked Foron whether this forest was known for bandits. Despite the coachman's uncertainty, Lucas trusted his instincts. His training had sharpened his senses, and he knew he wasn't imagining things. He warned the group to prepare. The others looked confused. They heard nothing but the ambient sounds of the forest. Yet one of the guards unsheathed his sword, choosing caution over complacency. Foron shouted for everyone to arm themselves just before the bandits burst from the tree line, charging at full speed. The guards were stunned. Lucas had predicted the attack with frightening accuracy. The bandit leader laughed triumphantly at having found more prey, while one of his men complimented him for being right. Another eyed Julia and remarked that she would fetch a high price, while Lucas would be quite valuable to certain clients. Foron stood firm, demanding if the bandits understood the consequences of attacking nobility. The leader scoffed and ordered his men to kill everyone except the two siblings. Chaos erupted. Swords clashed beneath the moonlight as bandits engaged the guards. One guard managed to impale a bandit cleanly with a spear, but the leader's fury intensified. Foron fought bravely, his sword stained with the blood of several enemies. He turned to Julia, urging her to leave the rest to him before charging forward with gritty determination. He shouted for Lucas to take Julia and run. But an agonized cry suddenly pierced the forest. A bandit mage unleashed a powerful fireball, incinerating the guards in a single devastating blast. Foron watched in horror as flames engulfed his comrades. The revelation that the bandit leader was a mage filled him with dread. With no time to waste, Foron screamed for Lucas and Julia to flee. But in a single careless moment, the coachman was struck by a brutal blow, and a spray of crimson filled the air. Lucas shouted Foron's name in anguish as the injured man collapsed to his knees, surrounded by enemies. The bandit leader threatened to burn Foron alive as punishment for killing his soldier. Even wounded, Foron forced himself upright, swearing he would protect the young masters even at the cost of his life. Lucas knew Foron was outmatched, utterly powerless against magic. He clenched his fist. There was no longer any point in hiding his strength. The man who had shown him such kindness had become like family. He told Julia to hide, warning her that the situation was far too dangerous. She nodded fearfully and begged him to be careful. With a determined gaze, Lucas sprinted toward the battlefield. Meanwhile, Foron was being overwhelmed by multiple attackers at once. Exhausted, bleeding, and out of breath, he collapsed again. The bandit leader raised his sword for the final strike. Before it could land, a shadow flashed between them, blocking the blow. Golden projectiles streaked across the battlefield, each striking a vital point with uncanny precision. One after another, the bandits fell instantly. As the dust cleared, Lucas's hand glowed with radiant golden energy. He remarked that training had been a good idea. Weak bandits like these were nothing to him. The bandit leader was horrified. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he realized all his men had fallen in an instant. Enraged, he raised his staff and unleashed a massive fireball toward Foron. The coachman, too weak to move, accepted his fate with a peaceful expression, grateful that the siblings would survive. He whispered his thanks to the heavens, but Lucas materialized before him, extending his hand to intercept the fireball. With a swift motion, he redirected it far into the forest. Foron stared with tears in his eyes, unable to believe what he had witnessed. Trembling, he called out to the young master, overwhelmed by the sight of Lucas saving him. The bandit leader was equally stunned, unable to comprehend how his magic had been nullified so effortlessly. Despite his fear, he attempted another spell, but Lucas's eye gleamed as he declared that the fight was already over. In a blur, Lucas dashed forward and delivered a luminous punch. The impact sent the bandit leader flying, a shockwave rippling through the battlefield. Foron gasped in awe, asking how Lucas had done such a thing. Lucas answered with a confident grin, joking that he must have a natural gift for martial arts. Before either of them could celebrate, a dark aura spread from the fallen leader's corpse. A skeletal creature with razor-sharp claws and glowing purple eyes rose from the ashes. With a grotesque skull and a sinister purple orb deep in its chest, the monstrous undead roared and prepared to attack. Lucas stood protectively in front of Foron, realizing Julia must not see this abomination. The creature lunged, slashing with its claws, but Lucas leaped over it easily. He descended with a powerful punch of light aimed at its head. The blow connected, but the creature unleashed a wave of dark red energy in retaliation. Chains of corruption burst from the ground, wrapping around the corpses of the fallen bandits. The monster absorbed them, transforming into an even more grotesque form with numerous limbs. A glowing purple snake symbol appeared on its forehead. Lucas realized that symbol was controlling the undead. The monster attacked with frightening speed, but Lucas focused his energy into his hands and released a rapid barrage of light-based strikes. One hit the symbol directly, causing a brilliant explosion. The creature staggered, and Lucas prepared one of his most powerful techniques, the explosive aura palm. With all his strength poured into a single strike, he slammed his palm against the snake mark. A massive beam of golden light pierced through the creature. The symbol fractured, then shattered completely. The monster disintegrated into ash. Exhausted, Lucas collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily but relieved he had managed to protect everyone. Julia rushed to him, throwing her arms around him and celebrating his victory. Foron, still trembling, stared in disbelief at what he had witnessed. Suddenly, Lucas sensed another presence approaching. A horse whinnied and he turned toward the forest. A young woman with white hair emerged on horseback, bound and gagged, her eyes full of fear. And Lucas realized they were not the only ones who had been attacked tonight. The young woman with white hair trembled where she sat bound on the horse, and Lucas took in her appearance with shock. She looked exhausted, terrified, and barely conscious. Clearly another victim of the bandits' ambush. Far away in a dark chamber, bodies hung upside down in grotesque rows. A creature with sharp fangs greedily licked the red liquid dripping from them. It was the same woman who had appeared previously at the altar, the one cloaked in malevolent energy. She examined her surroundings with cold indifference before discovering that subject number 44 had been eliminated, the very undead monster Lucas had destroyed. Realizing that someone powerful had interfered, she declared that restoring her strength would now take priority. With a slow, deliberate step, she entered a pitch-black pool of sinister magic, the liquid rising around her as she began to recover. Meanwhile, night stretched over the forest. A waning moon illuminated the clearing where Lucas's group had made camp. Within the safety of their firelight, Julia gently helped the rescued girl settle down. Her name, they learned, was Mayor Rasta. Lucas found the name oddly familiar, though he couldn't recall why. Mayor, too, recognized the Ryan name. Foron explained that both the Ryan and Rasta families were noble houses from the region near Daku. Julia hesitantly asked how the girl ended up seized by bandits in the first place. Tears welled in Mayor's eyes as she recounted the horrifying events. She remembered the bandit leader's wicked laughter as he assaulted her carriage. His mage subordinate had incinerated her guards one by one, leaving no survivors. Her lady-in-waiting had desperately tried to protect her, only to be captured and dragged away across the burning forest floor. Mayor explained between shaken breaths that the bandits were indifferent to noble blood, revealing her identity did nothing. Their true objective was to abduct children from nearby noble houses, nothing more. Lucas comforted her softly, assuring her that the danger was over and the bandits who attacked her had been dealt with, yet he couldn't shake his unease. Something darker was happening. Mayor's story combined with the undead creature he fought made everything far more unsettling. Foron approached the group, explaining that Mayor and Julia had gone to rest after the chaotic night. Lucas asked for his thoughts on the situation. Foron believed they were dealing with highly skilled professionals targeting noble children, not common criminals. Lucas added that bandits wielding fire magic and controlling corpses was extremely unusual. The coachman's expression turned grim. He concluded that a terrifying demon must be orchestrating everything from the shadows, manipulating the bandits like puppets. Foron vowed to report all of this to the Ryan household and believed the Rasta family's cooperation would be invaluable. Lucas suggested altering their travel plans to avoid further danger. At dawn, their group finally reached the city of Daku. However, their plan to stay was immediately thrown out. Lucas explained that some bandits could still be hiding in the area. It was safer to proceed straight to the academy. Mayor agreed with his reasoning. Julia, however, looked disheartened at missing the chance to explore the city. Seeing this, Lucas placed a hand on her head and promised that on their return trip he would treat her to anything she wanted. Her disappointment melted instantly, replaced with pure joy. Mayor smiled softly at the siblings' close bond. Foron announced their official entry into Daku, encouraging them to look out the carriage window. Lucas and Julia eagerly peeked outside. The city was breathtaking. A lively crowd filled the streets, children ran past with toys, merchants shouted out their goods, and wooden buildings lined the cobblestone roads. A father carried his son on his shoulders. The air buzzed with cheerful energy. Mayor smiled, admiring the city's vibrance. Julia and Lucas chatted with her, sharing in the small moment of happiness amid their journey. Lucas couldn't help but feel nostalgic. The lively streets reminded him of his past life. Suddenly, a creepy clown doll popped up from a vendor's stand, startling both girls into a synchronized scream. To lift their spirits, Lucas quickly purchased an assortment of sweet pastries. Mayor offered Julia a donut, and Julia devoured it with sparkling eyes. Lucas watched with satisfaction as the girls enjoyed the treats. The carriage resumed its course, rolling deeper into the city until stopping before the academy gates. Foron pulled the reins gently. This was as far as he could take them. Lucas reassured him, promising he would keep Julia safe. Julia then wrapped her arms around Lucas, declaring she would use all her strength and magic to protect him as well. Lucas smiled and patted her head, saying he was counting on her. Foron, deeply moved, felt tears prick at his eyes at the siblings' devotion to each other. Mayor looked on curiously, surprised that Lucas would allow his younger sister to talk about protecting him in such a manner. The coachman gave them his final farewell as the three youths walked toward the academy entrance. Mayor pointed ahead, encouraging them onward. She blushed slightly, feeling grateful for having met the kind siblings. Lucas echoed the sentiment. Meeting the two girls had brought unexpected brightness to his journey. Just then, Lucas remembered something, and Foron appeared beside him one last time to clarify the situation. He explained that Mayor Rasta had once been Lucas's fiancée during childhood. The engagement had been arranged but dissolved after the divine ritual exposed Lucas as having no magical talent. Allen Magic Academy was one of the three most prestigious institutions in the Carmen Empire. located right here in Daku. First-year students underwent an examination a year after enrolling to be sorted into departments. Exceptional students could graduate early, and those who passed the certification exam could graduate immediately, even before the full 6-year curriculum. The siblings observed the large crowd of students preparing for the academy's admission exam. Julia grew sad upon realizing she couldn't take the exam alongside her newfound friend. Lucas gently explained that Mayer had already completed her exam and was safely reunited with her family. He encouraged Julia to focus on her own exam, reminding her that if everyone passed, they would be able to see each other every day. That simple reassurance brightened Julia's mood immediately. The siblings' appearance drew attention. People whispered about Julia's beauty and wondered if she was also taking the exam. They also commented that Lucas looked surprisingly handsome. One boy jealously muttered that he wished he had such an adorable younger sister. As the crowd gathered, a woman with striking purple hair approached. Julia's eyes widened as the woman introduced herself, Mina, the vice president of Allen Magic Academy's student council. With a gentle smile, Mina asked if Julia had snuck in to follow her older brother. Julia denied it firmly and announced she was there to take the exam as well. Mina realized instantly that Julia was the same girl who had received an elite class invitation. She knelt to confirm Julia's identity, Julia Ryan of the noble Ryan house. Julia asked in surprise how Mina had known her name so easily. Mina invited Julia to the registration area but completely ignored Lucas, who stood right beside her. Julia frowned and pointed out that her brother also needed to register. Mina blinked, startled, realizing she had entirely overlooked him. Lucas muttered irritably under his breath that mages were ridiculous. In his mind, they believed themselves superior, but to him, they were nothing but tiny insects. Weaklings like Jeremy and the undead monstrosity were no match for his martial strength. He grumbled that he was only here out of respect for his parents. Mina overheard part of it and grew flustered, apologizing as she confirmed his identity. Lucas tried to hide his irritation. Seeing she didn't look down on him, he followed as she guided them toward the examination hall. Inside the vast chamber, students gathered in anticipation of the exam. Mina used magic to distribute emblems and instructed everyone to register with a council member. She explained that the emblem numbers corresponded to each student's exam order. The exam would consist of 3 parts: measuring magical potential, testing elemental compatibility, assessing destructive power. Lucas asked if the process was identical for the martial arts department. Mina confirmed it was. Lucas sighed. He muttered that the academy was simply too lazy to create a proper martial arts test. Still, he cracked his knuckles, ready to demonstrate the true power of martial arts and shatter all expectations. The first test began. Students placed their hands on a magical orb to measure potential. When Lucas stepped forward, the instructor looked at him with disdain. As soon as Lucas touched the orb, the result left the man stunned. A once-in-a-millennium phenomenon, magical potential 0. The room erupted in laughter. Lucas let out a tired sigh. It felt like reliving his childhood all over again. When it was Julia's turn, Lucas encouraged her not to hold back. She gripped the sphere tightly. Golden light exploded from it, blinding the entire hall. A beam shot upward, illuminating the ceiling as students stared in disbelief. The number 10 materialized in brilliant gold, the absolute maximum magical potential. Students whispered in awe, declaring her a prodigy among prodigies. Julia looked delighted and ran to Lucas, asking if she had done well. Lucas praised her proudly, saying that with talent like hers, she would one day become a great archmage. Envious students mocked him but fell silent when a friend hushed them. Lucas simply thought to himself that everything was going according to plan. As long as Julia shone brightly, he could enjoy a peaceful school life. Lucas felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that all his planning and hard work to enhance Julia's talent were finally bearing fruit. He had secretly used the mage's consecration ability to amplify her magical potential, and now the results spoke for themselves. As the instructor announced the next test, the students moved toward the spirit cabin, a grand hall with a glass ceiling that filled the vast space with gentle sunlight. Lucas and Julia walked hand in hand toward the center of the hall, where numerous blue elemental pillars stood in a large circle. The room was alive with magical spirits of different shapes and elements, fluttering effortlessly around the pillars. The moment Julia stepped inside, every spirit in the hall turned toward her. As though irresistibly drawn, they flocked around her, swirling in circles with cheerful voices and gleaming trails of light. Students gaped in disbelief, marveling at the sheer variety of spirits responding to her presence. One student grumbled that he couldn't attract even a single wind spirit. Lucas smiled quietly to himself. Julia possessed maximum compatibility with every element, and the spirits could sense it. He was relieved knowing his special ability was safely boosting her potential without drawing suspicion. When the instructor announced Julia's score, an astonishing 9.6, the highest recorded, admiration and envy filled the room. Students surrounded her with praise, eager to befriend her. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, Julia panicked and fled into Lucas's arms, clutching his clothes tightly. He gently asked what frightened her, and she whispered that everyone's stares scared her. Lucas comforted her softly, explaining that geniuses always attracted attention and she would eventually have to get used to it. Julia nodded against his shoulder, declaring she needed to grow stronger to protect him. Lucas realized that strengthening her mental resilience would be just as important as improving her magic. Nearby, two students whispered about Julia's incredible performance. One muttered that her brother was useless, reminding his friend that Lucas's compatibility score had been 0. They recalled how all the spirits had fled from him as if disgusted by his presence. Another student mentioned witnessing a bizarre moment. One of the fire spirits had torn its own arm off after the second test, nearly scaring him to death. His friend dismissed it, chalking it up to nerves. Lucas overheard everything, becoming thoughtful. He couldn't believe someone had witnessed what happened. He remembered how the fire spirits reacted to him. Their connection to the fire god made them especially hostile toward the martial god's successor. As he left after the second test, he had warned one spiritedly, only for the little creature to spit fire at him. Lucas flicked a pebble at it in retaliation, knocking it down. Now he muttered that a mere servant of the fire god shouldn't dare act superior. Taking Julia's hand, he calmly guided her toward the final portion of the exam. She told him she would be fine as long as he didn't use his full strength. He smiled, saying he planned to let her protect him as always. The destructive power test took place in a large arena filled with metal dummies forged from a special enchanted alloy. Students whispered among themselves, certain no child could possibly break one. Lucas examined them with interest, thinking they looked sturdy enough to test his level 6 technique. He was excited to try such high-quality equipment. Suddenly, a student shoved him aside to cut the line. Before Lucas could react, a short-haired girl barked at the offender, ordering them to the back. Her eyes glowed with an intimidating red light, and her aura frightened everyone nearby. Positioning herself in front of Lucas and Julia, she exuded a terrifying presence. She stared directly at Julia, asking if she was the one who scored 9.6. Intense fury flared in her eyes as she glared at the small girl. Terrified, Julia hid behind Lucas, calling his name with a trembling voice. Lucas stepped forward protectively, asking who the dark-haired girl was and what she wanted. She introduced herself as Awa Miranda, granddaughter of the powerful Duke Miranda. Lucas recognized the crest instantly. The Miranda family was one of the Empire's 3 great houses. His own mother, Catherine, had also come from the Miranda lineage, meaning Awa was his maternal cousin. Confused, Awa declared she had never heard of him. Lucas calmly explained that they were cousins, asking her not to glare at him so intensely. Awa's face twisted with anger. She had never been told she had a cousin and accused him of arrogance. Swearing she would humiliate him, she unleashed a spell, a mental control designed to force him to undress. Lucas didn't move an inch. His mocking smirk revealed her spell had absolutely no effect on him. Awa froze, stunned. She had no idea how her magic had failed. Lucas taunted her upbringing and told her weak magic was useless against a martial artist. The instructor then called Lucas's name and he headed toward the dummy. Before leaving, he told Julia not to show off too much during her test. Awa turned her fury toward Julia instead, vowing to take the top spot from her. Lucas saw a magical screen display the rankings, Julia in first place, Awa in second. For the sake of a peaceful school life, he realized he couldn't let Awa overtake Julia. He handed Julia a piece of candy. She popped it into her mouth and immediately made a disgusted face. Lucas patted her back as she swallowed the bitter pill. She protested that it wasn't candy at all. Lucas apologized, explaining it was a special magic potion made from rare ingredients. The instructor called Lucas again and he stepped up to the metal dummy. He asked if he could simply strike without magic. The instructor agreed indifferently. Students scoffed, predicting he'd break his hand. Julia glared at them, itching to retaliate, but remembered her brother had told her to behave. Even Awao was curious now, remembering how her mental spell had failed. Lucas's blow came faster than anyone could follow. He stomped the ground, concentrating his power. His eyes glowed. In one instant, he appeared before the dummy. With a punch engulfed in blazing golden energy, he struck the metal target. The arena shook. The dummy shot backward like a cannonball, smashing into the wall and crumpling under the force. When the dust settled, the dummy lay completely destroyed. Gasps spread throughout the arena. Owa stared wide-eyed. His speed was comparable to high-level wind magic, and the golden glow signified devastating power. She realized she might be the only one who truly understood his strength. The instructor congratulated Lucas, astonished. It had been 10 years since a dummy had been broken. Julia flashed him a proud peace sign. Lucas smiled, thinking he had concealed enough of his true power to avoid trouble. But soon everyone's attention shifted to Julia's turn. She gathered immense energy, her staff crackling with purple lightning. A purple magic circle formed beneath her feet. With a thunderous shout, she unleashed red lightning, the second strongest type. The dummy glowed red as her attack blasted it. Students were stunned. Julia collapsed afterward, confused. She had only ever been able to use purple lightning before. Lucas scratched his nose innocently. He knew the potion he gave her temporarily amplified her abilities. He thought about how rare the Mage Essence elixir was, an elixir only he and the Minister of Martial Arts knew how to refine. If anyone discovered this, it would be a massive problem. As sunlight warmed the academy grounds, Julia and Lucas waited for the results. Julia complained about the wait, and Lucas told her to be patient. Mina approached with the results and congratulated them. Julia cheered upon hearing she placed first in the elite class. Lucas praised her, saying she'd be essential for their future. Mina asked which department she'd join: earth, fire, wind, water, or the special division. Considering her attributes and whined God blessing, Julia chose the wind department. Mina was delighted and escorted Julia to the female dormitory. Lucas headed to the martial arts dorm. Julia remained the star of the rankings. Owa seethed, swearing she'd take first place someday. Upon arriving, Lucas found the martial arts dorm to be an old, decrepit building, perfect for a quiet life, he thought. A cheerful white-haired boy greeted him, Kai Tui, his new roommate. As they filled out forms, Kai praised Lucas's strength, but Lucas brushed it off as luck. A staff member handed them keys. Kai was ecstatic to share a room with Lucas. Inside the filthy dorm, 2 more roommates were already present, Collins and Sharp. Kai recoiled in horror at the room's moldy walls and decaying furniture. A spider made him shriek. Assuming he was a pampered noble, the others smirked, but their eyes widened when Kai pulled out a gleaming gold coin. He offered it to whoever cleaned the whole room. Lucas watched, shocked at his generosity. As the others worked, Lucas wondered how no one warned him he'd be living in a dump. After an hour, the room sparkled. Kai proudly handed out the reward. Despite his dramatic personality, Lucas found him strangely likable. A staff member arrived with their uniforms, telling them the entrance ceremony was about to begin. Kai stared in horror at the worn-out uniform. Lucas mentioned the school's request system. They could ask for better treatment if needed. Kai immediately leapt out the window to investigate, leaving Lucas speechless. At the ceremony hall, a massive statue of a witch stood at the front. Lucas entered confidently. He spotted Julia in the elite front row seats wearing her elegant white and gold uniform. Lucas took his place in the back row, unfazed. It suited him perfectly. Magic candles ignited with golden flames. A lotus of fire formed in the air and a boy floated above it. The student council president, Theodore Falamal, a level 6 mage. He announced the academy's point system. Points could be exchanged for anything from rare books to magical beasts, but normal work earned very few. The last method to earn points: monster hunting. A mountain range filled with beasts lay behind the academy. Lucas clenched his fist, excited. It was the perfect training ground. Late that night, incense ensured everyone slept deeply. Lucas slipped out of the dorm, leapt over the academy wall, and entered the dark forest. Shadow creatures attacked immediately. Lucas dodged and countered, striking a giant purple frog with overwhelming force. Its horn shattered and the creature collapsed. Lucas harvested the horn, valuable for potions. He needed points. He needed the martial god's legendary books, and this mountain was only the beginning of his true training. The mountain range stretched before Lucas, dense with shadows and moonlit mist. He scanned the landscape calmly, deciding he needed to locate the monsters quickly. Activating one of his martial abilities, his right eye glowed with golden brilliance. Ripples of golden leaves radiated outward, sweeping through the forest and mapping the presence of every creature nearby. A distorted shape soon materialized in his perception, a giant rat with red eyes, razor-sharp teeth, and a back covered with poisonous spines. Without hesitation, Lucas struck it with a swift hand chop. The creature fell instantly as Lucas coldly told it to sleep. A level 2 bat swooped from above, but one punch silenced it mid-flight. Moments later, a level 3 magic panther appeared, only to be defeated just as easily. Explosions echoed through the trees as Lucas dismantled every monster he encountered with astonishing speed and efficiency. When the forest finally fell silent, Lucas smiled, satisfied with the mountain of materials he had gathered for both elixirs and academy points. But the quiet troubled him. He crouched and touched the ground. Nearly no traces of other beasts remained. Something powerful had driven them away. To confirm his suspicion, Lucas sat cross-legged, activating his perception again. The ability guided him along a desolate, eerie path through the forest until he reached the mouth of a pitch-black cave. A heavy, oppressive energy seeped from its depths. From the darkness, a giant wolf with glowing purple eyes snarled at him. Lucas did not flinch. The bluish smoke flowing from the cave signaled he had finally found his target. Moments later, the true creature emerged, a massive wolf with white fur, red paws, and an aura of both frost and flame. A rare level 6 fire and ice wolf. Lucas smiled in excitement. He charged straight into battle. His first strike collided with the wolf's paw, but the beast barely reacted. The wolf counter-attacks with a blast of ice from its mouth, aimed directly at our protagonist. It freezes his hand, not caring at all. Lucas punches the wolf with the frozen fist, badly injuring its head. Lamenting he hadn't trained harder, he could have ripped off its leg otherwise. Wounded, the wolf switched to its second attribute. A massive fireball burst from its mouth and detonated against the cave wall after Lucas dodged. A stream of furious flames followed, engulfing the forest in burning light. Lucas weaved through the coils of fire before grappling the wolf head-on despite the scorching heat. The beast was astonished. How could a human endure its flames? Golden light flickered across Lucas's fist as he countered with a brutal uppercut that damaged the wolf's jaw. He then unleashed a golden energy blast that sent the creature hurtling into the cave wall. The wolf collapsed with a whimper, its strength fading. As Lucas approached, he noticed a yin-yang symbol glowing in its eye, proof of its incredibly rare dual elemental nature. He seized the beast by the neck. Even subdued, it exhaled fire and ice in defiance. A golden blade of energy shot toward the wolf through the haze, but the creature narrowly evaded it, scrambling deeper into the cave in terror. Lucas chased it relentlessly. He grabbed its tail mid-escape and slammed it against the stone. When the wolf recovered, it launched itself like a spinning ball. Lucas got hit and crashes against the wall, but taking little damage. It retaliated with shadow fire and ice in a combined assault. Lucas leapt above it, gathering power into a final blow. A tremendous explosion shook the cavern. Just when he thought the fight was over, the wolf lunged with its massive red paws. Lucas steeled himself. If he didn't use his last resort, he would be crushed. Then the wolf stopped. Two glowing objects rose from within its body, a fire core and an ice core, true beast cores. Lucas froze. Beast cores were the crystallized essence of magical beasts, and this creature possessed two. Powerful beasts never submitted to humans, and yet this wolf was offering itself. He realized the truth. If his blood touched the cores, the wolf would become his loyal servant. He smiled. Cutting his finger, he let his blood drip onto the shining cores. Brilliant light burst through the cave as the wolf swallowed them and kneeled in acknowledgement of its new master. When the light faded, the cores fused within the wolf's body, transforming it. A voice echoed in Lucas's mind, the wolf speaking directly to him. He was startled but quickly understood. The bond had granted them telepathic connection. He named the wolf All, and the creature accepted joyfully. Lucas wondered if this meant the entire territory was now his. Understanding his thoughts, All nudged him and beckoned him deeper into the cave. They navigated through the darkness until arriving at the wolf's hoard, piles of monkey bones, gemstones, and rare minerals. Lucas's jaw dropped, but the wolf insisted this wasn't the true treasure. Then it revealed its real collection, multiple level 3 beast cores and 2 more level 6 cores from defeated beasts. Lucas was stunned. He rewarded all with an elixir. Golden light washed over the beast as it recovered and stood proudly. Lucas instructed it to guard the treasure. All accepted its first mission with enthusiasm. Morning came. Lucas sat in class, yawning after staying awake the entire night cataloging his new riches. Despite the lack of sleep, he wasn't tired thanks to the tranquility incense. He muttered that all had kept pestering him while he worked. The clock chimed, students waited nervously, the professor was nowhere to be seen. Kai began panicking, thinking the academy forgot to assign them an instructor. Then the door burst open. A staggering man stumbled inside, kicking a bottle aside. He complained loudly about drinking too much, then slammed a book onto the desk. The students recoiled. This was their professor. Lucas and Kai stared in disbelief. The disheveled man introduced himself as Sugar Art, their martial arts department head. Lucas studied him carefully. For all the man's drunken demeanor, something about him felt dangerous. Sugar Art wrote his name across the blackboard with perfect steadiness. Then, without warning, he shouted. The sheer force of his voice sent Lucas and Kai flying backward. Kai held his head, confused and terrified. Lucas realized instantly Sugar Art was a high-level martial artist, at least level 5 or 6. Sugar Art warned the students never to speak without permission and began roll call. Tishi answered. Lucas answered. Collins answered. The professor then announced he had forgotten the textbooks and ordered Tishi to retrieve them. Kai objected, demanding a fair selection process and boasting about his lineage. A piece of chalk slammed into his forehead. Sugar Art had thrown it so fast Kai didn't even see his hand move. Tishi left, proud of her new responsibility. Sugar Art dismissed the rest of the class to independent study. Hours later, Lucas and Kai walked toward the dining hall. Kai complained endlessly about their ordeal. Lucas teased him, but both fell silent when Julia called out happily. She reported that her wind magic teacher was encouraging her to become class representative. Julia then asked if Lucas had become his class's representative. He smiled and admitted he hadn't. They headed to the dining hall for lunch. The tables overflowed with delicious dishes. Julia ate joyfully, sharing some with Lucas. Kai stared wide-eyed in despair. The elite class could exchange 1 point for 100 coins, while their department exchanged 1 point for 10. A staff member scolded a student who complained, saying talentless students must work harder. Julia offered Kai some food to comfort him, and he cried gratefully. Maya, the white-haired girl they rescued, appeared with a smile. Julia invited her to eat, but Maya declined and offered cookies as thanks. Julia loved them. Lucas complimented her baking, and Maya blushed. Kai begged for a cookie, and Lucas reluctantly shared one. Maya departed cheerfully. Lucas yawned, thinking the dining hall was always trouble. Mina approached, asking if they were enjoying their meal. She leaned close to whisper Lucas's name shyly. Before she could say more, Theodore, the council president, floated past using fire magic. Lucas clapped sarcastically. Later, Sugar Art drunkenly wandered past them, causing a bottle to fall. Lucas noticed and wondered where the professor was heading. Sugar Art walked to the clock tower with tears in his eyes. Inside, a meeting awaited him. The other professors debated the upcoming beast taming tournament. A man in a green suit insisted the martial arts students be excluded. Sugar Art slammed the table, angered by the discrimination. Linda, the blonde professor, agreed with him, insisting on equal treatment. Other professors sided with her. The green-suited man relented begrudgingly. After the meeting, professors questioned Linda, asking if she was sure about supporting Sugar Art. With a confident smile, she recalled the words she once heard. A coward who cannot overcome adversity has no right to call himself a martial artist. Back in the classroom, Sugar Art announced that the tournament would take place in 6 days and declared he would ensure every student could defeat a beast. Outside, martial arts students sparred intensely. Tishi demonstrated exceptional skill with a powerful kick that impressed Lucas. He noted she was the strongest in class after him. He joined the sparring session and quickly defeated his opponent. After training, students collapsed in exhaustion. Kai revealed he'd made a deal with Collins to earn points, bragging until Lucas rested a heavy hand on his shoulder to silence him. Night fell. Lucas returned to the mountain with all. He roasted meat over the fire, thinking training time was precious. He also worried about Mina's interest in Julia. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. All drooled at the meat until Lucas fed him. Lucas admitted having a beast companion wasn't so bad. He promised he wouldn't hurt all during training, a promise that didn't survive the night. Meanwhile, back at the Ryan household, Catherine sat alone under the moonlight, sadness weighing on her. Hall approached, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. He asked if she was thinking of the children again, and Catherine admitted she could hide nothing from him. Hall smiled gently, reminding her that their children's classes must have already begun at Allen Academy. Catherine tried to smile, but tears of worry gathered in her eyes. Hall offered to take her to visit them soon. Overcome with joy, she thanked him, her eyes shining as she imagined reuniting with her children. The scene shifted to Count Grindu's estate, where a secret cult meeting was underway. A barefoot woman walked gracefully toward a circle of hooded figures whose masks hid their identities. Their glowing red eyes and sinister smiles revealed their allegiance to something malevolent. A green-haired woman greeted Jessica, Jeremy's mother, inviting her to join the gathering. Jessica sat among them as the cult leader unveiled her newest creation, the Jade Dream, an alchemical potion of immense potency. Jessica accepted a goblet filled with the vivid red beverage. The leader sliced her own arm, letting blood drip into the drink as if the pain delighted her. A cult member added another mysterious ingredient, and the leader encouraged the group to enjoy the mixture. Jessica hesitated, staring into the goblet as the liquid shifted unnaturally on its own. Nearby, a woman wondered aloud how an 11-year-old girl could have defeated the Black Wind group. The leader explained with a twisted smile that Julia was the combined prodigy of the Catherine and Miranda bloodlines. A mere level 7 mage had no business overpowering one of their units unless she was extraordinary. The leader then leaned toward Jessica, biting her lip cruelly before asking whether her son's ambitions would amount to anything. With a finger beneath Jessica's chin, she questioned whether Jessica truly wished to eliminate Catherine and Julia in order to rise to the rank of Baroness. Jessica nodded eagerly, asking what she needed to do. Smirking, the leader prepared to give instructions. A purple magic circle materialized on the floor as she activated a spell, her eyes glittering with sadistic delight. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive the continuation of the amazing story of this manhwa.